Transformative Principle, episode 74 with Brendan Hufford. I'm really excited about this interview today. It's a pretty good one. We talk about some entrepreneurial skills that kids need and how teaching kids how to be entrepreneurial could be just as important to them as learning how to read. So pretty interesting stuff here today. I hope you enjoy it. Also, Brendan has an offer for you who are listening. If you go to his website at brendanhufford.com/principal, he's got some cool tools, a little ebook that you can download to help you out. Before we got started recording, you were talking about how you you were trained to teach secondary, but then when you got to Indiana, worked for a year as a first grade teaching assistant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about what you learned there and how that benefited you as a high school teacher.
Man, so when I came from New York and I moved out here, and took a while for my certifications. I took my tests at the end of my senior year, and it took a month to get the results. So now it's July, and I'm out here, and then I have to take these tests. I didn't get all my certifications in Indiana and Illinois until September, but by then all the jobs are taken. So especially if you're a social studies teacher, because they freaking lied to me. They're like, we need teachers. And it's like, oh, no, we don't need teachers. Social studies, we have 1,000 extra of those. Sorry, our bad.
Yeah.
So there's no jobs. And I was just looking for anything. And luckily, my mother-in-law is a beautiful human being and also an educator. And she was able to get me a couple interviews at different positions. And I ended up becoming like you said, a teacher's assistant in a first grade classroom. And I saw children at the beginning of the year who couldn't read at all, like zero reading. And at the end of the year, they could read at like a second grade level. Mm-hmm. And that was incredible to me, because when you give somebody, I want to say that other than like spoken word, the gift of reading, the gift of self-education, there is no better gift that you can give a human being than that. Yeah. And that opens the whole world to somebody, right? That's where they can start living the fable of like, you can be whatever you want to be. Well, not until you can read. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And when these kids could start reading, it was so incredible to see that transformation. I get a little bit of dust in my eyes just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the problem is that I've yet to meet many secondary teachers who don't just get frustrated when the kids can't read.
Yeah.
They just figure it was somebody else's job along the way, and you screwed them up, and now they're just going to scrape by.
Right.
And, well, what if you actually knew how to teach kids to read? What if you knew when you saw a kid doing something, you're like, oh, I know what they're doing. When they read really quickly and they just throw in another word that looks like the word that's there, and they're not actually saying, and then you make them, you stop and you go, no, say that again. And they'll say it again. I'll be like, does that make sense to you? I don't know. I'm really asking you. Yeah. No. Does that, like, think about what you just read, and they'll think in their head and they're like, that word doesn't make any sense. I'm like, so maybe it's a different word. And they're like, oh, when you can actually speak to somebody about like the art of reading and not just ignore it, because that's what I feel like a lot of teachers do. And not to dog teachers, because I'm still teacher, 100% teacher, like 99% teacher, 1% principal. But I think that it's easier to ignore it sometimes. So to be able to actually teach a high schooler to read, which I got to do a couple times, it was beautiful, because I'm not taking any credit, but like I was given the opportunity to help save this kid's life.
Totally.
That's cool.
And it really is saving their life. So my oldest daughter was born with Down syndrome. And when she was born, my grandpa said, well, are you going to put her in an institution? And I was like, of course not. She's my daughter. That's crazy. But even with those challenges, I didn't know what she was going to be able to do. She's in third grade now, and she's just now learning how to decode words and actually sound out words, And
it's awesome.
Now that she's able to do that, I feel like, okay, now I really believe
she can do anything. If she can learn how to read and understand what she's reading, then I really do believe that there's no limit on what she can do. And yeah, she's going to have struggles and challenges, but up until just this year when she's been able to start doing that, I have really been concerned and worried about what her life is going to be like. But recognizing that she can read, she can now do anything. And so what I want to tie this back to is your idea that we need to teach kids entrepreneurial skills, because when they have entrepreneurial skills and can actually make money and they can read, then we are teaching them that they don't have to be a slave to anybody else, that they can define what their life looks like and they can do the things that they really want to do. And you know, we started talking about that a little bit ago, and I just wanted to get back to that because I really believe that this idea of teaching kids to read, that is a fundamental skill that every single kid needs to be able to do. But so is being able to make a living for yourself. As Dave Ramsey would say, get out of the cave, go out and kill something and drag it back and eat it. That is a skill that everybody needs to be able to have. And it's
freaking love Dave Ramsey.
I figured
He's so
you did.
Great.
So
great.
I do too. So anyway, I just think that is being able to teach kids entrepreneurial skills is incredibly valuable. Then when they do go to college and they have a huge tuition to pay, if we can teach them to find a way to pay that instead of taking out loans, then that's going to be huge for them also. I took out a bunch of loans just a couple of years ago. My wife and I got out of debt, and right now we don't have any debt, and it's an amazing feeling to know that we are totally debt free and don't have to worry about paying somebody else money when we get it. Our money is for us, it's not for the bank or the credit card company or the student loan company. Those are pretty good feelings. And to think that there are people who have been in debt for, decades and are still struggling under that. I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for any other kids.
I agree. How can you tell your children to live? How can I look at my child, my son? How many kids do you have, John?
I have 4.
Congratulations. What are their names?
Katya, then Callie, then Tenzing, then Eloise.
That's beautiful. Awesome. So my son's 1.5. His name's Evan. And
Solid.
I can't look at him straight face and tell him he can be whatever he wants to be. And I can't tell him to live his dreams if I'm not doing the same thing, if I don't have the potential to do the same thing. And I don't think you can look at high school students and tell them they can be whatever they want to be when they grow up if you don't also have that in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing to be a teacher is one thing, but being there because it's the thing to do, it's the thing that pays the bills. It's hard, man. It's a hard thing for me to weigh because it's such an important job. It's like kind of being like a fireman because it pays the bills, or a policeman. Like, don't get me wrong, you're going to have hard days and hard seasons and hard years. You might even have a hard 2 or 3 years in a row. But if your heart's not in it long term, like, that's not fair to the kids and it's not fair to you. And I think a big part of that is, having that, like, I don't need this. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I don't need this. I can choose to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be there. And like, I could quit today and be fine financially. It's not about that for me. And when I can put that kind of heart into it, and it's still not at all by any means easy, but because I have that entrepreneurial mindset, I'm more innovative. I'm more, like we were talking about the other day, just in my art room, we have like tall tables and tall chairs.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, we can't get standing desks in the classroom, but let's take all the chairs out of the art room. Just see how the kids do. Just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to be innovative, trying to do things that are exciting. And I don't mean like spend more money on technology. Like, that's what every school's excuse is. Well, let's just throw more computers at them. That'll solve it.
Yeah.
Doesn't, man. Like, let's look at some low tech stuff that's going to make a difference. Like, let's do exercises in the morning and in the afternoon after lunch. Like, things like that have been around in like Eastern Asian countries for decades, and we're like just throwing more laptops at the kids. It doesn't help. So I guess my point is that when you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're always looking for things that are better, in your business, and like, oh, these people are doing that. I wonder how that looks in my business. And I think this and that, and you're studying and you're self-educating. But when you don't have that mindset, you just continue doing what you've always done. And the more we give kids that, the more we bring that into our schools as administrators, the better off they'll be.
Yeah, totally. And I really like how you said right there, the studying and self-educating. And that's what we really want to teach our kids. If they can learn how to learn themselves, they can do anything. And there aren't things that are blocking them, and the same goes for us too. If we can study and self-educate ourselves about what could change how we do things, then we're going to be a lot more successful in actually getting those things to change. So you've been at the same school for 8 years, and you're still having these ideas of how you can change. Do you, being an entrepreneurially minded administrator, do you get pushback from people around you that, let's just do it how we've always done education, or do you feel that your schools fosters and supports that mindset that you have?
Less now. We had a turnover in administration in the last year, so much less this year. But prior to that, yeah, quite a bit. We had a much older, very traditional administration. So, for instance, my boss last year would tell me, I got not reprimanded, but I was told very sternly to I have this really cool like IKEA chair in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told to take it away, to take it out of my office, because no child should ever be comfortable in your office. And I was like, holy crap, you don't get it.
Right.
Like, you don't get it. And this is the same person who told me, like, I said, well, we need a school Facebook page and a school Twitter. Like, they're talking about us on there, not negatively, but the conversation is happening and we can't join in. And we can't add, and we can't communicate. That's where people are. That's where the eyes and the ears are. And I think that her response was, what is a tweeter?
Right.
And I was like, never mind. Never mind. 1982. You're living in 1982, and I live in 2015, and you think that I'm 9 years old, probably. So whatever.
So did you go and create a Facebook page and a Twitter account?
Yeah, we did,
right.
And made it happen. But the school, I mean, it's still a nightmare. Like, this is so ready. This is another hot button topic, and I think it's so dumb. Schools blocking YouTube. Like,
mm-hmm.
I know, but they're going to watch this, they're going to watch that. Well, like, what, is this freaking the 19, like, is this the Red Scare again? Like, are we going to start banning books? Like, I think it's there's adults in the room. Like,
right.
Why are you nervous about the kid? They're going to go and look at videos they shouldn't be. Well, what's preventing them right now from getting out a book and reading an illicit book in class? Nothing. And that was a concern 40 or 50 years ago. Yep. Well, now we're so concerned about this. Just open it up. There's an adult in the room. If the adult in the room is not paying attention and lets them look at all sorts of crazy stuff, that's the adult's fault, not the kids. And right. I think the blocking of YouTube and the blocking of social sites on school web, it's so dumb, because it's like, just monitor them. Don't ban it. Look at what happened when we tried to ban alcohol in Prohibition. It was so much more trouble, but people don't see it like that. It's like, when you just legalize alcohol, it was a lot easier. And when you just legalize these, right, let's compare Twitter to alcohol, but all right, probably should have thought about that one first. But I just think that, like, it's so much more effective, and you teach kids to use it as a tool to educate themselves. Hey guys, we're learning about civil rights today. We're all going to go on twitter.com/search and look up civil rights. What are the conversations that are literally happening this minute about civil rights? What a cool lesson that would be. Hey guys, what we're going to do today for an activity is you are going to make a Twitter account for a famous historical figure during class today. And you're going to send out 5 tweets. You're going to give them a profile picture, and you're going to do all these things. You're going to send out 5 tweets from that. And then I'm going to walk around at the end of class. I'm going to check your tweets and see how they are. And kids would probably come up with hilarious hashtags
mm-hmm.
and stuff, and like silly puns. And it's like, it would show that like highest level of like synthesis, and they would really get it. But no, we're too afraid.
Yeah,
we're too afraid of these things.
Let's take it to the next level and say go and see what is happening with civil rights right now on social media, and then get one of those people to Skype into our class and talk to us about what they are seeing with civil rights right this minute. Someone who's actively talking about it and engaged in it. What are they going to teach us about civil rights today? Not just, what we can read in our history books, but about today actually, and not limit ourselves to the things that we can only read in history. There are things happening right now that we need to be paying attention to.
Totally. Like, what if we went on there and that somebody was talking about civil rights, and then we saw their next tweet was that they were starting a live, like, Meerkat stream.
Right.
And they were there. They were freaking there, like, at this thing, whatever the event is, and they're live streaming on Meerkat, and it's like, oh my God, we're here. We're seeing this in, like, live in class, and it's crazy. Like, that's what I'm freaking talking about. And it's like, what? Wake up, guys. Like, this is here, and it's now, and it's amazing, and it's so fun, and the kids get it. Like, they use their little mouse fingers, and they, like, that's what it is now, and the culture is changing, and I think it's a lot better when you roll with that tide. Yeah,
absolutely. So what are some of the other entrepreneurial...
Let me just step off my soapbox now. Sorry.
That's what this is for. I love your passion about it. I can tell that you're excited and engaged, and you care about what you're talking about, that it's not just, like you were saying before, it's not just a job. It's something that you choose to do, that you choose to be engaged in. And when we're at that point, we're so much better and so much more entertaining and enjoyable and engaging and all that kind of stuff. So what are some of the other innovative or entrepreneurial things that you're trying to do in your school right now, or that you want to do? Maybe you haven't done them yet, but that you want to start doing?
This year we have a really good entrepreneurship teacher and business teacher, so I'm really, really thankful and happy about that. He's fantastic. He really gets it, and he's really good. So that was a big thing for me for a while. And then I know there's a startup called Buffer. Mm-hmm. It's what I use to schedule my social media posts. And Buffer is a 100% transparent company. Like, all of their emails within the company are available to everybody else within the company.
Really?
So they operate under like 100% transparency in every area of their business. And one of the areas that they're transparent is their salary schedule. And a lot of schools that have unions and stuff are fully transparent. But I just literally I copied Buffer's salary schedule and submitted it to my boss. I changed some things around so it was more applicable to school, but I was really amazed that in the past we don't have one. We're a charter school, and it was all hush hush, don't tell anybody what anybody else is making. And then when the administration had this turnover, it all became public, what everybody made. And it was like, really that person's making that, and that person's making that. It made no sense. It was all who you were friends with and like really sketchy stuff. And now with this transparency, it would be really cool. And I think it would be amazing to reward teachers for the grade the whole school gets. Like, if our school got what if you made an extra 6 Gs if your school got like the highest rating possible? Mm-hmm. For sure, I'm going to teach the crap out of this stuff this year, because that's a lot. Like, for a lot of people, that's over a 10% raise. But all of a sudden we tie that in. And I don't mean in a punitive sense. A lot of schools use that sort of like merit-based pay to be punitive. And the schools that tend to do that are schools that are doing poorly already. And that's very scary for teachers. But what if you gave them a really good base salary and then just said, hey, this is a bonus.
Right.
We're already going to give you something great because you're going to do the work anyways. We trust you, but let's give you more. So I think having a fully transparent salary at my school is very entrepreneurial as well, especially basing it off probably my favorite startup in the whole world.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I looked that up while you were talking about it, and just glancing at it, looks really cool. They've got a salary formula and a bunch of other things that make that up, which I think is pretty neat. I'm going to look over that some more. I like it.
Oh, it's nuts. They have like a whole dashboard for it now as far as like the company's equity. The founders just got money during their last round of funding. They got each of them got like $1 million just cash.
Mm-hmm.
And because they gave up some of their stock to do the funding, so they just took $1 million in cash each, and they both were like, yeah, we got this. Like, we just want everybody to know we're all in the up and up. Like, where all the money goes in the whole thing. It's such a cool thing. And what if you were a school that did this? What if your values were on there, and how you took money in and how you were spending your money? All the expenditures were on there. Wouldn't that be wild? Like, nobody's ever done that. Like, be that guy, be that change that you want to see in the world. That's how I live.
Yeah. So this, my school district that I'm in now, they take every single teacher, administrator contract to the board, and the board approves every single one by, with a dollar amount attached to it, and all of that. And that was something, so like in Utah, where I came from, I just moved up here this last year. In Utah, they have the newspaper who goes and does an open records request for the school district to get everybody's salary, and then it's really opaque because all the benefits are counted as salary. So my salary looked like it was $50,000 more than it really was, and I kept saying, well, if that's how much I'm making, I'd like to just get paid that and go find my own health insurance and other benefits and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's so sketchy. They were putting that in there? That's
yeah.
Weird.
So it totally blew things out of proportion. You couldn't really tell what people were really making. It was very confusing and not good at all. And I really like what our district up here does, because, you would wonder what other people made down there. Up here, you don't need to wonder, because, at this time, in fact, this last board meeting, the administrators and the teachers' contracts got put before the board, and then the board looked at the big list. So everybody can go in there. It's part of board docs, and you can see how much every single person is making, and it's pretty cool because they're open about it and transparent about it, and there's no fishy business like there was in Utah, where it just felt like they were trying to hide it so much. And here, that's not the case. It's very open and clear, and it makes a difference, because you don't wonder, and you don't feel those feelings that we often get when that kind of stuff happens. So anyway, I think that's pretty cool. So at the end of my interviews, I ask a question, same question for everybody. What is one thing that someone can start doing today to be a transformative principal like you are?
So the best advice I ever got in my business was, if you want to do something revolutionary in your industry, is to spend 0 time in it. Spend 0 time. If I'm making jiu-jitsu gis, I'm going to spend 0 time watching what I'm doing and what everybody else is doing in my industry. And I'm going to watch streetwear. I'm going to watch food trucks. I'm going to watch these other industries and see what they're doing and see how I can apply that to mine, right? And I think a lot of people in education, we get very caught up, like, I'm going to go to all these conferences and I'm going to listen to principals talk about principling and blah, blah, blah. Man, if you really want to make a difference in your school, spend 0 time learning more about education and spend way more time learning other things. Become super interested in other stuff. Like, what if instead of reading The First Days of School, that stupid book, for like the 50th time, go out and learn. I'm trying to think of an example, like,
The $100 Startup by Chris Gillibo.
Sure. Right? Learn about marketing your school. Learn about how to change your brand perception in the local community. Learn how to look up the dip. Like, if you're feeling like crap in your career, look up The Dip by Seth Godin, which is about that little dip beat when you either quit or you pursue. What was the word I'm looking for? Persevere and continue in your career, and you make it amazing, right? Read about business. Read about, whatever your faith is. Like, find something interesting to read about for that and apply it. Like, show that. Live that in your job. There's so many other things in the world. Read a famous biography. Read about friggin' Theodore Roosevelt or somebody really amazing, and then apply that to your job. So start spending 0 time reading more about education and educators. and this is Jethro just again, my last soapbox, I promise. I'm so sick of all these books and this. I just feel like it's a big. I don't have an appropriate way to like a school appropriate way to describe this. So I don't know what else to say, but I don't think very highly of a lot of the education books that are coming out. It's just people trying to say the same crap and regurgitating the same crap to get more speaking gigs, to get published. Why? Because they don't want to be in the classroom anymore. And you can tell, like when you have real classroom chops, you can tell they don't want to be there anymore. They want to make more money. They still want to be in education, but like they don't really want to do the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like it. I look at a lot of these, the new thing is like now the new buzzword, you might have seen it, is like all this like neuropsychology, and let's look at how the brain informs how people learn. And it's like, oh, what's the new buzzword in 3 years? And then 3 years after that, there's another new thing we're all on. And that crap's all a joke. If you really want to make a difference in your school, start learning about something else and then apply that to your school.
Yeah, I like it. That being said, still download my podcast, and thanks for subscribing, rating me in iTunes, all that kind of stuff. So keep learning from me too.
For sure. And let me add something. Like if anybody is looking for like some other things to use in their schools, if you're, I'm a big proponent of schools being very entrepreneurial, and I put together a list of like 10 really cool free tools that I use in my business and in my school that you can use too. Things like Evernote and Buffer and stuff like that. And Jethro, if it's all right, I put together a list for everybody who's listening. If they go to brendanhufford.com/principal, then they can just grab that. It's like a simple ebook. Cool. Sure. So the podcast is it's the Entrepreneurs in Coffee podcast, but I know that's really hard to spell because I always drop the second R and misspell entrepreneurs. So it's just eandcoffee.com. And then the best way to get in touch with me is really just go to brendanhufford.com, and
I will definitely put a link to that in
what
the
was
show notes
brendanhufford.com/principal, and just grab that the ebook, and you can chat with me on there, and there's a contact and everything. That's probably the easiest way.
With your OK Kimono and with your podcast as well.
Thanks again, Jethro. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. It was great talking to you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you're downloading it, that you're listening to it, and that you're listening all the way here until the end. If you could do me a favor and go to iTunes and rate this podcast and then share it on social media, that would be really great, and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much, and have a great day. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this podcast. Please subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and please feel free to give us a rating on Stitcher Radio or on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about how much we're learning in this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter @JethroJones.